don't believe in such things. So.
Oh, good. Yeah. Say what you like.
Didn't get it. Gave up on it.
Okay.
Hi. Hi. So I am John Stuart, Clarke, indeed. So I'm not an imposter. I do work for Aviva as well. So and I am here to talk to you at the beginning of our particular data governance journey. I can't claim it to be Aviva's data governance journey, because Aviva's a bit more complicated than that. So it's one little bit of Aviva's data governance journey, so we'll talk about that as we move through the slides. So that's me when I had a bit more hair. You know, you've just got to go with things, haven't you, as they unfold. We're not experts at data governance, so I'm not Nick Larriskin, obviously. I don't have a depth of knowledge and a depth of experience or range of experience. My background is my education is software engineering, so I have a geeky phase of my life, and then I went into change management, so I sort of moved slightly closer to the business side, and I've held roles as a business analyst, as a scrum master, as a programmer, and those sorts of roles basically. But I've always been aware of the value, the importance of data, and particularly data management, and in particular data quality. I've got a team. I'm quite lucky I've got a team, so some of our speakers have not had teams, we've got a team. Some of them, nearly all of them in fact are here, so we've got a couple of the ladies over there on the end, so I don't know if you want to wave ladies. So that's Beverly and Isabel. And we've got Steve, who some of you will know because he's quite a famous bald data geek. I think that's his own branding, not my branding. So he's a DAMA committee member, so he's probably well known to DAMA people. And then we've got Elizabeth, who's at home with a new baby, so she's got the perfect excuse not to be here with us today. So I've talked a little bit about my background. And I have a general understanding and awareness, if you like, of the importance of data and good data management. Aviva has kind of woken up to the fact that it needs to take data governance probably more seriously than it has done in the past. About 2 years ago, we brought out a new commercial strategy, and our commercial strategy is all about disruption and fintech and all of this stuff that you'll hear about if you follow feeds on such things. And it all sounds trendy and very exciting and very future-oriented, and indeed it is. But you know, we need to do some stuff with our data before we're ready for that, I think, really. So 1 year ago, the opportunity came up for me to start a data governance team and a data governance capability, if you like. And I took that because I could see that although data didn't get much of a mention in our commercial strategy, it was quite clear to me that that was the underpinning layer of everything that we were trying to do. So I thought, well, okay, if there's a strategic angle to this too, then I'm interested in this, so I'll have a go at this. So that's me and the team and why we're here now. So Aviva is, has anyone not heard of Aviva? Someone told me they hadn't earlier. I told them it was a bus company. We used to make about ourselves. We're quite a disparaging bunch, self-deprecating bunch at Aviva. So it's not a bus company, it's an insurance company. Not that there's anything wrong with bus companies, obviously they're fantastic. Yeah, that's right. It's a really annoying comedian that was annoyingly successful for us, and yeah, internally, yeah, less popular perhaps, but there you go. That's my first indiscretion. So we're a very large insurance company. We have a very broad range of products. So we call ourselves a composite insurer, which is not a consumer-friendly title, is it? But what we mean by that, so our strategy is kind of saying we've got an insurance policy for everything. So that's kind of where Aviva's going. But what we recognise is that we're also a very siloed company. You know, we've built in bits, we grew through acquisition and mergers, we've expanded globally and then shrunk back to Britain and a few sort of you know, large outposts in other parts of the world, and found that sort of happy medium about what's right for us. So we've got a very long history as well. We've got something in common with Google in that we've been around for almost as long as our industry. So we've got a 300-year heritage. Google's been around as long as, you know, data and internet of things and all of these things have been around. So we share one thing in common with Google, which is pretty good. So our strategy does mean that a lot of our people are talking about big data and analytics and software robotics and automation and all of these things. And so data obviously is at the heart of all of that. However, our data landscape is not where we would like it to be. Our data legacy, if you like, from all of that history is not where we'd like it to be. And so today, our data is not defined and organised and accessible in the way that we would like it to be. You know, so it means for us to get our data into that state, there's a lot of work for us to do. So what I'm going to talk about in this presentation then is these subjects that are appearing on the screens in front of you now. So we are at the beginning of the journey, just like a number of others of you. So we're nowhere near at the end. and we're not ready for our homework to be marked yet. We're still finding our way with this stuff. What I won't be talking you through is a polished framework that you can copy, paste, take away and apply. We don't have one. If you've got one, you can share it to me, please. And I'll talk less about what we've done, if you like, and more about what we've learned, although I'll slip into a little bit of what we've done as a consequence of that as well. If you are curious about what we did, or how we did it, or why we did it, and I don't cover that in enough detail for you, do cut in with questions if we have time, or grab me at lunch and I'll chat you through, or of course talk to my team members as well, and they'll be able to answer your questions as well. So that's what we're going to cover. So in terms of where are we now then, just to set a context for that. So we have got sponsorship, and it is a very senior sponsor. He's a managing director of one of our businesses, so that's good. We've got actively, so we get a tip from Nicola for that one, so we've done that bit right. We've got very actively engaged leadership. So I work for a head of, she's got a reporting line to a director, and so we've got quite senior leadership involved in this stuff as well, and they've got defined accountabilities around this stuff, so that's pretty good as well. And our leadership are supporting us in what we're doing. We've got some fully funded people, so that's evidence of support, isn't it? You know, paid salaries. There is an awareness of the strategic importance of what we're doing within our business. We have a data strategy. I read some statistics on this. We're one of the very few that's actually got a data strategy. So I feel really chuffed about that. What I feel less chuffed about is the fact that the governance team had to write it, and then we had to try and spoon feed it into the leadership. And I think, therefore, we'll come back to that at some point in the future, and we'll have another go at that, hopefully with the right ownership next time around. But it's a start, nonetheless. And it's got some principles in it, so that's something we can anchor onto, isn't it, when we're doing more detailed work. We've got defined roles. On Nicola's slide, I saw 6 roles. We have 5 of those. We don't have quite the same nomenclature, but we have 5 of those roles. And our data owners are very senior people. You know, they are the highest level of leadership within our business, so we have got them. And the way we did that was we said, who do we want to be accountable? That's where we went to for owners. All we want you to do is pay the bills and authorise the action that needs to be done. You know, you need to fund this, and you need to organise the troops so that when we need to do something, you know, it happens. It's not a bartering process. So that's how we chose our leaders. We do have governance forums now, and we have people appointed into the roles, attending the forums. So we've got all that kind of network of people going. So that roles and responsibilities is there in its early stages. It will evolve. It's iterative, obviously. It will evolve. As we do more work and move from the theory more to the practical, things will change, and we'll have to make changes. We do have a data governance framework, or the majority of it. I mentioned my immediate team. I've actually got some of my group team in the room as well today. So there's a couple of ladies. Put your hands up, come on, ladies. So we've got Kim and we've got Sarah, and they're in our central team. And Mark didn't put his hand up, did he? Because he's the ladies, probably. So from our group team. And so what we've been quite successful in influencing the need to have a group team, so that we can, from the top, put something out there to the wider Aviva universe that drives consistency. Because whilst we're one part of Aviva, we trade left to right with other parts of our business, as well as outward to our customers as well. So it's important that we try to have some degree of consistency across those internal boundaries. So that's what those guys will do, is help us to achieve that as well. And hopefully we'll meet in the model. We'll come from the middle upwards, if you like, or looking at the bottom upwards. They'll come from the top down, and hopefully, if we collaborate well, we'll get that right. We're running some pilots right now in order to test all of this stuff to make sure it works. We had our first mini pilot, and what we tried to do with our pilot was to say, let's use our framework, let's do it quick and dirty. We're not going to worry about tools and writing everything down as well as we will need to do in the future. We're just going to test that this stuff works. And we looked at a particular data set. It's one product line that's worth of data. And what we discovered with that data was 3 problems with it that nobody else knew existed. You don't need to be an expert in insurance to understand that these are problems, trust me. So the first one was policies with no policy holder. That's a problem. So who's paying premiums? Who's authorised to put in a claim? It's a bit of a challenge, isn't it? Another one was policyholders where the end date of the policy preceded the start date of the policy. So you've got money, you've not got any covers. That's not treating customers fairly, is it, probably? And the third problem that we had was some dummy test data, some JKL, XXXXX, had gone through all of our processing internally, gone into our live production environment, now into an external database to which we submit, which is controlled by a regulator. So and they don't pick it up either. So we discovered some real problems, and actually talking about all the policy and all of the stuff, all of the theory and why we need to do it, and going through all that stuff in detail. We've done some of that early on and got so far with our leadership. But do you know what really hit me in the face was when we took those things to the table. And we took it to our steering group, which is where our data owners meet, so they steer, so that makes them feel more important, so they turn up, participate more, everything they're steering. And they were horrified, truly horrified that these things had happened. And unfortunately for us, our culture is not really a blamestorming type of a culture. It's more about we need to sort this out because this isn't what we want, we want better than this. So the right reaction came off the back of that, and we've now got some things we can fix, which is great. So that's our first success story. We're not yet exploiting any technology, okay? So we are spreadsheets and PowerPoint and talking to people, and we're going to stay that way for a little while yet. So that's kind of where we are. I spent a bit longer on context than I'd intended to, so I might whiz through some of the rest of it if we're time down. So remember a slide or two ago I said there were 5 main things I was going to talk to you about as lessons learned, and the first one of those is up now, and it's create a vision. I'm a business analyst through and through. If you cut me in half, that's really what I am. I'm pretending to be a data governance manager, if I'm honest. And I believe passionately in having a target in front of you that you can aim for, expressing that in language that the people you're trying to sell to understand. And to me, that's a vision. It's really, really important that you have one of these. And when you're creating a vision in the insurance context, you can think of it from 2 different perspectives. So you can think of it from the perspective of regulation and compliance, stopping bad things from happening. Yeah, and that's an obvious thing to do for an insurance company, a heavily regulated organisation. You can also then think about it from the more cool, interesting side of the Internet of Things and all this opportunistic stuff, big data, disrupt, fintech, all this kind of cool, trendy stuff that people want to get into. And that can work really, really well, because then you're talking about you've got a vision that is clearly related to your organisation's commercial strategy. So that's a different kind of sell then, isn't it? So you've got the innovative people on your side, you've also got the risk, governance and control type people on your side as well, because you're playing to both audiences. And it's important that you do that, I think, when you're writing your vision. So once you've got a vision, though, you need to hold on to it, because there are bogeymen out there who will come and try and take your vision away, and the bogeymen will say things like this: I don't get it, or what's the point, don't get it, still don't get it, really. I'm still resisting. Yeah, we did all that, so that's all rubbish. What are you doing that for? It's a waste of time. Go and do some real work. You might recognise some of those comments. And that's the bogeyman, really, and we seem to have paused. There we go. That's the next stage of the evolution of the bogeyman. He's really getting his heels in now. He really doesn't want to do what he's trying to get him to do, does he? I don't know if this was just bad timing on my part or with slides. And that's the worst one of all for me, because that's you saying to yourself, and that's the one you don't want to be saying, isn't it? And the way you avoid all this stuff is the vision. Really strong vision, really well articulated. You've got to believe it. You've got to sell your soul on it. You've got to back it. You've got to believe it. And if you do that, then you won't be bothered buying so much of that. When you are, you'll be able to put it to bed quickly. So another thing you need to do in a large organisation like ours is build a team. You can't do this stuff on your own. It's just impossible. We're an enormous organisation. We've got so many people who do so much stuff. It's so complicated. Your team needs some characteristics. You need to think about who really wants to do this stuff as well, not just the people who are told you're a data owner and crack on, and no context, no guidance, and no support. You've got to work with people who are comfortable with uncertainty and are comfortable with forming their own role and can live with that kind of stuff. They've got to be motivated. Remember that data governance isn't a particularly sexy subject to everyone, is it? It's not the most passion-arousing subject for everybody. And also to me, it feels, from doing some reading, I read a lot, I study a lot, and it still feels to me like quite a new profession in many ways. It still feels like it's taking shape. A lot of the experts probably don't agree with each other on all things. That's not uncommon for experts, of course, though, is it? But I think particularly in the field of data governance, we've got some of that. So try and work through a few good people. Think about some of those things whilst you're recruiting your team, and working out whether you're going to centralise that team and have a few really good people who are permanently on this, or whether you're going to work through a broader network of people. Okay. So our Aviva Canada business, actually I'll skip that bit because I think looking at the time, so I'll skip that bit. So the next section then is really, the next thing I want to talk about is some of the things in past lives. So if I'm rocking up and calling myself a data governance manager and I've not done data governance before, I need to have something that I contribute, don't I? So what I contribute is the things I've learned from past lives. I worked in a lot of projects, a lot of change projects, and very large programs as well. And we've recently been doing a lot of work using agile methods and agile approaches. Agile came out of the software development world, but actually if you mess around with the odd word, you can make it quite broadly applicable. And these are really good principles to adhere to, I believe. These are things that help you cut through. These help you focus on the right things, the things that really matter, rather than the things that get in the way of the things that really matter. So I actually passionately believe in these principles. I think they're really important. They quite sum up quite well who I am as a person and how I work. I have my own sort of spin on agile, my Johnisms, if you like, my own truisms about agile, and these are mantras that I carry around with me that help me cut through when I'm hitting brick walls and getting too bogged down in policy or writing too many words or whatever it is that's bogging me down. Just don't forget that I am a business analyst at heart, so I do like to write. You know, I've got to stop myself sometimes. And the one data people struggle with, I think, is good enough is good enough. Data people struggle with that a little bit. There's a lot of data people are perfectionists, if I may stereotype. So, and perfectionists struggle with that. You know, when you've done enough, move on to the next thing, because there's always plenty of things to do. And we found that this approach helps us stay iterative, helps us build things up in little increments. It helps us get in, do a bit of work, prove a bit of benefit, get out, get on to the next bit. And if you do that, you create a nice little rhythm of activity. You keep the motivation and the interest of your stakeholders, hopefully, and you'll be successful. So, I mentioned a few times that I used to be a business analyst. They're the people that ask why a lot. It's a good question to ask with this stuff. We're very good at buying tools and platforms and doing deals with vendors. We're really, really good at that. You know the vendor, we deal with them. You can get into that stuff too soon if you're not careful, can't you? If that's your habit and that's your comfort blanket, you can get into that stuff too soon. If you don't know what you're doing, and you don't know where you're trying to get to, and you don't know what good looks like, you shouldn't be doing things like that. So the why question is really, really important, and the what problem are we trying to solve question is really important. It's that old cliche of requirements before a bit of design, before a bit of build, before a bit of test, and then loop back around again. You know, that still holds true today, even in an agile context. You just do less of it in each chunk. And of course, you know, plenty of tool vendors out there, aren't there? You've heard that already today. There's a gazillion of them. They'll all come and complicate your IT estate for you and take loads and loads of money off you, and they'll all dress really well and look fantastic. And you know, in their own way, they're all fantastic, aren't they? But you know, they've got a generic solution for a generic set of use cases. You live in the real world with a very specific set of problems that are only real to you and are less real to them. And so there is, you know, we're very, very cautionary about this. We have got access to the Informatica suite. All that stuff already, it's there on the shelf, you know, and all these really, really expensive tools. But I'm very, very cautious about diving into that stuff too soon. You can't start showing people that are in diagrams before they even really know what data governance is, then I'm just going to turn them straight off, basically. So we have to take our time with that stuff. That doesn't mean, though, that when you get a real data management expert who's quietly in the corner of the business doing a really good job of looking after one of your critical data assets, that you wouldn't talk to him in those terms, or her, because you would, obviously, but not your leadership when you're trying to get a bit more funding for the next stage of work. So you just have to think about those things. I mentioned that my education is software engineering. One of the principles of software engineering, at least when I was taught it, was to reuse things. You know, it's a really good idea. You know, and you can apply that at university in your life, and we've certainly done that with Aviva. Our colleagues in Canada have been working on data governance in their business for about 4 years. They've done a really good job. So we've nicked a load of stuff from there. You know, they've written some documents which we could quite easily repurpose. They've got some approaches, some ways of working that we can repurpose. So we've done that. That's one of the advantages of being a large organisation. I think if you look further enough, you'll find someone who's had a go at this in the past, or is actually doing it, and perhaps not getting any recognition for it. So there's always opportunities to reuse, and I'd always advocate them. It's really important. Communication is really important. Pictures speak 1,000 words. Sometimes people even put 1,000 words into a picture as well, as in case it's very pretty, I haven't got a clue what it's about. That was even worse. It purports to be technical, but it frightens me to death. That came from the project management body of knowledge. So there you go. Project managers love the process, don't they? So, there we go. I'm very wary of using pictures personally, because I find usually if you're using any kind of symbol set, any kind of notation, you're probably the only person in the room who really understands it, unless you're talking to experts. And I see so many times people put up lineage diagrams or process flows or something of that ilk, and no one else in the room really gets what they're looking at. And you can really lose your audience quickly doing that, especially when you're talking to middle and senior managers or top-level chiefs of type people. If you are going to use pictures, they need to be really punchy, really impactful. I prefer to use stories personally. That's probably more a personal bias than a learning, if I'm honest with you. But I have used it very successfully on this piece of work. I do beginnings, middle and ends, and I turn everything into that kind of a narrative, really. And I find it works quite well with senior people, and I make it as concise as I possibly make it. Half a page or less at all times. Got to be very realistic about what you're going to do when you're going to do it by. So I come from a project world in my past life. What's that all about? Time, cost, quality. Chop off quality, time, cost. Right. Track the schedule, track the budget. Hopefully there'll be some quality at the end of it. That's the world I've inherited as someone who's worked in projects for a long time. Sorry, that's the world I know quite well. You're always in that world being challenged. Before you even start work, predict when you're going to finish it. Before you even start work, predict what it's going to cost. And you can fall into the same trap if you're not careful with this. You'll get asked the same sorts of questions. I kind of get data governance. You've interested me enough that I'm not throwing you out of my office. How long is it going to take? What's it going to cost? And you've got to be really careful about answering those questions. So I have a stock answer for that, which is 3 to 5 years. And I've not deviated from it yet. And I've got all sorts of reasons and excuses I can come up with about why I'm being that vague at this point in time. And I guess the last thing for me is the value of humility, because if you're not an expert and you don't know the answers, and you're making some of it up as you go along, and you're reading stuff, but you don't really know if you've understood it until you actually try and apply it and see if it works or not. And all of those things. And you're in a really complicated organisation that's trying to do a million things all at once, and everyone seems to pull in different directions. Things are going to go wrong, you're going to make mistakes, some of your ideas will fail. Agile people talk about this concept of failing fast, which I think is a terrible term. What they mean is, finish something as quickly as you can so that you can learn from it, and then have another go and do it better. That's what they mean. But it's a good thing to do. So you have to be humble. You have to use these sorts of phrases quite a lot. And don't be embarrassed about using these sorts of phrases. If you don't know, you don't know. The reason the last one's in German is just because I'm learning German at the moment. So sorry if you don't know. I'm sorry. So I guess that's kind of where we are in terms of our learnings. I didn't talk about how or the why, so I can take questions on that if people have got them. But we've got some questions that you might want to answer for me, actually, because we're still trying to work these questions out ourselves. So the first one is centralise or federate. So we have a small central team, and by federate I mean data owners, I mean data stewards, custodians, users as we call them in our language, and then the people that they in turn rely on as well to do what they need to do, because there's a lot of delegation through that network of people, as you can imagine. We haven't worked the answer out to that yet. I suspect we'll beef up the team a bit more, but I'm really, really reluctant, partly for job security reasons, to load that team up too much too soon. I think, again, people who are accustomed to using projects as a sledgehammer to do stuff often fall into the trap of throwing bodies at something. And that doesn't always work, unless you're really, really clear on what those people are going to be doing. I don't think it's the right way of doing things, necessarily. But we haven't answered the question yet. How far do you go with the tech? Do you go right to the extreme right and buy in the big suite and the big vendor that's up in the top right-hand corner of the garden magic square? Or do you start with rubber bands and chewing gum and only add in more complicated stuff when you need it? And I think my heart is still very much to the left, if I'm honest with you. It just works, that stuff. There are no internal barriers then to doing what you're trying to do. Accountability so that it affects reward. This is an interesting one, because how do you do that in a really complicated organisation? We tend to rely on people in our organisation that wear 100 different hats. And it's always the same people that get asked to wear yet another hat, because they're the good, reliable people that work hard and live the values of the organisation, so they get asked to do even more stuff. So we'd love to have people who are more dedicated to this, who are remunerated, rewarded, motivated by this, and we'd love to do more on that, but we haven't worked out how to do that yet. So if anyone has worked out how to do that, with regards to data governance, especially with data management, I'd love to hear from you, because we don't know. And then, because we're using a pilot approach, which is looking at very small data sets from our total data universe, but it's trying to do things fully end-to-end in terms of lineage, and also in terms of mapping controls, quality checks, business rules, validation rules, all that kind of stuff. In terms of the totality of our data, we're not making much progress. You know, in terms of the monster, the elephant, if you like, we've only nibbled off one little toenail probably. There's a lot more to come. We don't even know the totality of it yet. We can't even tell you what the totality of it is in terms of size. So, question living on my mind, assuming pilots are successful, they will be, and assuming we get commission to carry on, we will be, how do we then start to break down the rest into a backlog so that we can predict then what we're going to be working on when, what resource we'll need, maintain the support of people, keep delivering little success stories so that people stay motivated and stay committed to us and allow us to carry on. So that's quite key for us. And sorry, just before I move on, you can use strategic factors such as risk and things that drive revenue. That's an obvious thing to use for priority, but that will tend to lead you to the really big things rather than really small incremental things. You can then use tactical factors early on, such as who wants to work with us, who's able to work with us, who's willing to just crack on and not request a load of budget and just do some stuff off the edge of the desk with passion and energy and love. And so those tactical factors shouldn't be ignored, I think. They are important because they will get you moving and keep you moving. And I've said about that one already, 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years. For us, it's probably true. Canada are 4 years in. They haven't finished yet. They've got a simpler business than us, fewer products. They're more integrated between business and IT. They're less siloed than us, so they've got some advantages we don't have. They did have the disadvantage in my personal opinion of starting from IT and moving out from there. And they've ended up with a very technical implementation of data governance as a consequence of that. You know, it's all very tabular and very flow-based, and there's not a lot of context, if you like, so it's quite hard to bring senior people into where they are. But yeah, 3 to 5 years and millions of pounds. There you go. So hopefully that was roughly on time. Cancer. If you've got questions, I can't answer them because I'm not an expert, but I'm quite happy to answer them.
You talked about a time frame around this, sort of 3 to 5 years, but Nicola mentioned, and I kind of agree, is that data governance is a framework that you implement in individual activity.
Yeah.
So what exactly are you aiming to get done in 3 to 5 years?
So I guess what I'm talking about, so there's the creation of the thing, the framework, there's the chucking it over the wall at a load of people and saying do this, but then in a regulated business at least, we then have a risk framework that has a load of controls, and the controls are all designed to achieve the outcomes that things like our data governance framework say we should achieve. So there's a relationship between all the risk management furniture and the data governance furniture. And then there's a bunch of people whose job is basically to go around and make sure that the businesses are implementing those controls, they're testing that the controls are effective, and when they find deficiencies in the controls, they're improving them and remediating the deficiencies as well. So it's not clear to me yet whether the business will do all of that themselves, or whether the central team will have a kind of an oversight and attestation type role as well. So that time frame could come in if we have a groundswell of support in the business for that kind of work. My suspicion at the moment is that we'll have to do some of that for a period of time until it's embedded and people are comfortable with it, and then we'll probably find that we're less required. Sorry, do you mind, should we go to this slide and then, just so everyone gets it there?
No, it's just that you said that you discovered some data errors that
yes.
you come across. I was just wondering if you had sort of data Clarke is tied up with that.
Not that far in yet, I would say. So that's the conversations that are happening about us now, is how we're going to fix this, how we're going to make it happening again, fix the source type conversations. Okay, one more question?
Yeah, do you use sort of BA's tool or whether sometimes your information security team?
So, silos, Aviva and silos. So we've got a load of security people, we've got a load of data protection people, we've got them at cell level, we've got them at country level, we've got them at group level, we've got subgroups, we've got people who are tasked with all this stuff. And one of the things you have to be mindful of is finding out who these people are so you can collaborate, not treading on the toes, so you're not trying to do their jobs for them. And sometimes you find that the fracture lines between what they're doing and what you're doing aren't as clean as the textbooks tell us they should be. We're 300 years old, this is how we are. Changing that culture is hard. So you have to be, again, it's that humility thing again, saying sorry a lot. And being a good negotiator with people and just agreeing pragmatically how you're actually going to divvy up the work so that it all gets done and how all that comes back together so you've got some completeness of what you're doing as well. And not just a sliver of governance here and a golden break chasm over here that you're not aware of. So it is hard, you know, and we're not going to be the team to change the structure of our organisation. Not going to be us that does that. That'll have to be the CEO or somebody else. Yeah. So we have to live with it. So we work around it as best we can. And we go back to those practical, agile areas of just good enough is good enough. Okay, are we done? I'm sorry we're done, but I'm quite happy to talk to you.
Just based time, all right, so I'd like to thank John for that.